Welcome to BVM Sports Chalk Talk. This is Scott Procter. I'm joined by Matt Morris and Lucas Semb. We'll be taking a peek back at Week 9 of the NFL and a few matchups that caught our eye. In a game that lived up to much of the hype, Tua Tagovailoa and the Miami Dolphins went into Arizona to beat Kyler Murray and the Cardinals 34-31 on Sunday. This was a fun one for me because these are two teams that I'm extremely high on. Both Kyler Murray and Tua were both brilliant on Sunday. For those that know me personally know that I've followed Kyler Murray since he was at Allen High School in Texas, and he showed a lot of glimpses of that on Sunday and early on in the season. 300-plus total yards, 4 total touchdowns. He is a special, special player. But, my biggest takeaway from, that showdown was that Brian Flores, head coach of the Miami Dolphins, deserves a ton of credit for what he has done, with this franchise. To make the move to Tua when everything was seemingly going perfect under Ryan Fitzpatrick takes a lot of guts. Just imagine how good you have to be in practice, to unseat a veteran like Ryan Fitzpatrick, as a rookie. This move is paying early dividends. We saw him in his first start and Tua's first start, kind of ride his defense and special teams to a win against the Rams. And after basically getting body slammed in his first drop back in his first start, he really settled in. But on Sunday, we really seen him take control and show glimpses of what he showed and why he was so special at Alabama. He was nearly flawless throwing the football. He was special using his feet. And he was quick with his decision-making. And he showed his escapability and ultimately led a game-winning field goal drive to seal this game. And don't get me wrong, Miami now has 14 consecutive games with at least one takeover. They have a defensive touchdown in 2 straight games. And this is a complete team. And the best part of it, and part of the reason I picked Miami for the season to make the playoffs, just look at the schedule. Look at their next 4 games. We have, let me get this here, the Chargers next week with the rookie quarterback, although Justin Herbert is playing really well. Then they got the Broncos with another young quarterback in Drew Lock. Then it's the Jets. And then it's the Bengals and Joe Burrow with another young quarterback. 4 very winnable games. We can look up in a few weeks, and the Miami Dolphins are 9-3, 8-4. And I say all that to say this. Tua is the best quarterback in the AFC East. Sorry, Josh Allen. Sorry, Bills Mafia. And give Brian Flores his respect. What do you think, Matt?
Well, definitely give Brian Flores his respect and that front office. Obviously, I think after last season, everybody was thinking that the Dolphins would take forever to rebuild. And although you say it's a big deal that they moved on from Fitz Magic, and I love Fitz Magic, fear the beard. But the thing is that I think everybody knew it was going to happen. It was more of a whether they could protect Tua and if it was going to be safe. And to that point, his first drop back, he gets just creamed, and everybody's worrying, how is that leg going to hold up? But overall, he's been great since he came back. I'm not ready after 2 games to dub him the better quarterback than Josh Allen, who, is having a great season, just had a blowout game against Seattle where they really just made their statement to be one of the top teams in the AFC overall. And it's going to be interesting to see what that division looks like now, especially with the Patriots just not having any, chance this year, it looks like. I don't think they're going to save their season. So I'm excited to see Miami versus Buffalo for the AFC East for the first time in probably ever. But overall, very interesting to see what Tua has going forward. And honestly, the Cardinals too. Kyler looks great. I think he's my favorite quarterback to watch overall in the NFL at all. His ability to just throw the ball, and then you watch him run and you don't think he's running fast, and then he's just blowing past everyone. It's unbelievable. So overall, great game, but I'm not ready to give Tua all the hype yet. He's great, but he's not the best in the AFC East.
I'm going to hop in here. I'm going to hop in. I have to agree with Matt on this one. I don't think Tua is the guy yet. He's young and inexperienced, and it shows when he steps back in the pocket. He's having a hard time getting away from pressure. Scott, you said he was, he looked like he was making accurate, quick decisions. I just feel the opposite. I think he was making quick decisions, but not always to his benefit. He has weapons like Devontae Parker and Preston Williams and Mike Gesicki, and I just think he doesn't utilize them the way that he should yet. I feel like he's a little rushed. I think he'll build connections with those guys as time goes on, but I think the timing of the move is weird. This is full-fledged Fitzmagic's team. There's a special aura surrounding them. They're getting a lot of media attention. And then you take them out, and it's kind of like, well, they were playing well. I think they'd be a playoff team with him in there as well as you believe they would be with Tua. Their defense is absolutely elite at this point, back-to-back weeks where they've scored defensive touchdowns. And you don't want to end up relying on Gaskin, Jordan Howard, Matt Breida, which I think they're going to rely on them more with Tua and at quarterback. Fitzmagic just let it fly, man. And then, they've been winning with the change, so you can't really complain. I think they're good either way, but I just think the timing of the move is weird.
Luke, to be fair, though, I don't think it was Fitz. As much as Fitzmagic draws everybody in, it was waiting for when they were going to put Tua in, because that was the question. Is Fitzmagic playing well enough to, warrant not going with Tua, or are they just going to go with Tua because they look at it and they're like, we can make the playoffs. Let's get our guy in and move forward. But what I'm really excited for is, like he said, going up against the Chargers next week, Justin Herbert, who, unfortunately, the Chargers seem to just want to lose no matter what. Maybe they got a guy that they want to draft in the top because they're going to be there. But Herbert really is putting together a rookie of the year type season.
It's spectacular.
It's unbelievable. And he keeps losing, and it's just awful to see that. And it's going to be interesting because obviously I think everybody, expected Tua to go first. But looking back, I think you can make an easy argument that Justin Herbert probably could have been the number one pick as far as quarterbacks go.
Yeah, I think if you redrafted, I think Burrow probably still goes number one just because of the Ohio connection to Cincinnati. Yep. I think if you redrafted, Herbert definitely goes number two. But two things I want to address before we move on. In terms of the move to Tua, I think the biggest thing, with that move and, thrusting Tua into the starting role, with the Dolphins seemingly rolling, sitting at 3-3 before Tua took over. Fitzpatrick is your average level NFL starting quarterback. There's a ceiling with Ryan Fitzpatrick. He has shown you what he is throughout his career. There is no ceiling with Tua Tagovailoa. Also, you have to see what you have. The Miami Dolphins hold Houston Texans first-round pick, which is looking like a top 5 pick at this point. And they just have to see what they have in Tua. They had to see what they have in Tua because if he's not what they thought he was, you think that they might go quarterback again here in the first round. But there's no need because they already have the best quarterback in the AFC East in their division right now. And to the point of Josh Allen, he played great on Sunday, but we all know who he played. Probably the most porous pass defense in the entire NFL, the Seattle Seahawks. And that was Josh Allen's first good game since week 4. There were chatters of Josh Allen for MVP earlier in the season, and that lasted about 4 weeks. And he went to a very bad stretch where he played awful against the Chiefs, didn't throw a touchdown against the Jets, played pretty poorly again against the Pats. He got it back on track on Sunday against, again, an atrocious pass defense in Seattle. But time will tell. I think Miami is best positioned, again, as an entire team to compete in the AFC over the next few years, and Tua is a big reason why. But I think we can move on. I think Luke.
Not yet. You're not getting away with that.
The last word. No. You know who also was getting MVP talks? Russell Wilson. You know what he did against the Bills defense? Have 4 turnovers and bad ones. That talk. I don't talk MVP until at least you're going into week 12 or 13. Any week somebody can just drop the ball and have a terrible game. I'm sure people wanted to give Brady, start talking about him, but he's not going to give you the chance to talk about him anymore. So I'm not going to give Tua the credit yet. I think he's looking great. I'm excited for what the future holds for Tua. And I'm excited, honestly, for the NFL moving forward because there's a lot of great young quarterbacks. I mean, we got Deshaun Watson, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Tua Tagovailoa, Tagovailoa. You know, you got Lamar Jackson, you have Josh Allen, you have Kyler Murray. I mean, even Derek Carr's coming back a little bit and playing well. Yeah. This is a great new, like the new order of NFL quarterbacks. It's exciting to see, you know, this new guard take over as, you know, Rodgers and Breeze and Brady are starting to get to that point where they're going to retire. The NFL looks awesome moving forward, and I'm pumped to see these quarterbacks go at each other.
Yeah, I just want to make one comment quick to Scott's point earlier and then propose one question, and then we'll move on. So I think there is a ceiling on Fitzpatrick, but the ceiling is high. He was maximizing that ceiling. If he has the right weapons, I mean, he's 3-4 touchdowns, 300-plus yards every week, and he was doing that. So I think when someone's rolling like that, I mean, Tua came in to play one drive at the end of a game. That's all you saw in-game action. Practice, I mean, you can have good work ethic, you can look good in practice, but you don't know until someone gets into the game. And I think when a team's rolling like that, it was a risky move, but it's paying off. But you said there's no ceiling on Tua. I disagree with that. I think there is a ceiling. I'm really just not that high on him. I have seen one good lefty quarterback in my entire life, and it was Michael Vick. Name another one.
Steve Young? Are we counting that before our life?
Yeah. How far back are we going? Because they made that pick, and there's some really good ones.
Whatever. I'm gonna say Tua is not a Michael Vick. He's also not a Steve Young.
Yeah, I mean, I get you. If you're gonna hang your hat on the left-handed quarterback argument, that's fine. Again, time will tell. I mean, you have to be honest and say Tua has exceeded all expectations through 2 starts.
Yeah.
They're 2-0. They're 2-0. He's played beautifully in 1 to 2 starts. He didn't have to do much against the Rams. And again, and this is part of Brian Flores. Again, goes back to my point of why Brian Flores deserves a ton of credit. They're not just throwing, and we talked earlier again about Herbert and Burrow and the situations that they're dealing with. Tua has a team around him. He has receivers to throw to. He has a defense to rely on, and, you know, arguably a top 5 coach in the NFL. He doesn't have to do it all alone, and that's part of the reason why I'm so high on him and why I think that this move at this point in time is going to turn out to be, you know, one that we look back on that was a great.
Yeah, and I did actually forget to mention, obviously, the best out of all the new quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes. So people who don't come at me because I forgot Mahomes. I didn't forget Mahomes.
Can't forget Patrick.
I think you forgot Deshaun Watson, too.
I said Watson.
You mentioned Deshaun. Yeah,
you mentioned Watson.
I must have been
Michael Jordan, man. According to Davo. I mean, one other thing, Fitzmagic, 10 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He guns it, like you said, but he guns it to opposing teams' DBs a lot of the time. Tua looks a lot better at making decisions as far as throwing the ball away and not taking risks. And you need that in the quarterback. But we're all excited. We're going to have to, you know, table this because this is probably going to be an ongoing conversation for a while. But, Lucas, let's move on to your game. I believe you had the Chiefs. And
yeah, I want to talk about this last weekend's game with the Panthers and the Chiefs. We had the long-awaited return of Christian McCaffrey coming back, and I really, really like what Matt Rule has done with the Panthers, and they've played so well with what they have. I don't think the defense is there, but their offense and his play calling, I mean, I am very impressed with the Panthers. And it prompted the question, you know, CMC coming back against, you know, a top Super Bowl legitimate contender. I wanted to see if you guys think they could make a run with CMC back. Now, my question kind of gets changed. He comes back, and he's incredible, ends up getting hurt again, and there's a chance that he might have broken his collarbone. So I'm going to kind of change my question here. It's more going to be, when do you think the Panthers can contend for a late playoff push? Bridgewater's played beautifully. Mike Davis earned himself a paycheck with CMC gone. Robbie Anderson's second in the league in yards behind DeAndre Hopkins. The play calling from Rule, getting Curtis Samuel involved, he's been going off the last couple of weeks. They just have a lot of pieces that I really like. DJ Moore, when do you guys think that they can start, you know, making a legitimate run?
I mean, I think it comes down to, like you said, the defense. They have not played well against a lot of teams that you could definitely have gotten a win out of. I mean, losing to the Bears, they should have beat the Bears. I think they were competitive against New Orleans for the most part. it's going to be interesting moving forward, because with Brady and Breeze looking like they're still going to be around, and both those teams looking tough moving forward with great pieces around those older quarterbacks. I mean, you're going to talk about – I'm not putting the Panthers top 2 in their division for at least another 2, maybe 3 years. And that's even with all the great stuff that's going on. And then it looks like McCaffrey is setting up to be one of those classic running backs and football players where, it's going to turn into, how much are you actually going to get him in the season? Are you going to get him for 10 games? Are you going to get him for 12, 13? And as great as he is, you're not good if you're not on the field. Yeah, and so it'll be interesting moving forward, but I'm not ready to really say the Panthers are going to be contenders as far as getting the division, and that's what you need to make strong playoff pushes, is you need to win your division. So it'll be interesting, but I'm going to say at least another, probably 2 years to just add to that defense and, make sure that the offense stays as dynamic as they've been in these last few games.
For sure. Lucas, I really like that you gave Matt Rule some shine early on there in your take, because, he deserves it. This is another move, another coaching decision that got a lot of scrutiny, bringing Matt Rule up from the college ranks, giving him a ton of money. But, he looks every bit of the part of a legitimate NFL head coach here early on. I love to see McCaffrey back. I hope he can stay in the lineup. He looks special on Sunday again. He looked back to the old CMC that we all know and love. And the Panthers, they're much better than their 3-6 record indicates, in my opinion. You mentioned Teddy Bridgewater. I feel like he's kind of built this aura around him that he's kind of a dink and dunk quarterback, from his past. But he's really opened it up this season, pushed the ball down the field, and I think it's probably due to Matt Rule and Lucas. You mentioned again those weapons around him. I really like the Panthers' offensive arsenal. Not even mentioning CMC and Mike Davis, who did a great job while he was out. But, Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, these guys can all play, and they all kind of fit a different role. And you have a quarterback like Teddy who can spread it around and, take care of the football. I really like where this team is headed. The defense is a huge question mark. And, I like that you mentioned, the division race and, how they might match up in the future. And I kind of look at it a little differently from the simple fact that, Breeze and Brady their days are numbered. You know what I'm saying? Combined, they might have, this number ranges, but, I'll give them, 2 to 3 seasons each, you know what I'm saying? And, Matt Rule in his first season as a head coach there, and he can, start to build continuity and build a culture there in Carolina. I can see the NFC South being the Panthers division, in short order. But, I think the biggest story even from that game is Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are just entirely too much on a typical Sunday, and Sunday was a typical Sunday. The Chiefs are the most complete team in football. They have the game's best player, 25 touchdowns to 1 interception. I'll just leave it there. I'll just leave it at that. I believe that Patrick will win the MVP and the Super Bowl MVP this season. And that's how I feel about that.
They have so many guys you can just slot in, and Mahomes is going to find them. Even last year they had that Byron Pringle guy step in, and he had like a 2 or 3 touchdown game. Demarcus Robinson has been catching, and he's just on special teams. He's not even getting the opportunities. Demarcus Robinson has been catching touchdowns the last 2 weeks he's had on. Tyreek Hill, he just turns on when he wants to. There is nobody stopping him. He didn't really do anything explosive until probably the second half, and he was just untouchable.
Yeah, Andy Reid just wakes up, each Monday going into the next week and decides, who's going to be going off this week. It is basically what it is at this point with all the weapons they have. And, the best defense is a great offense, and that's what the Chiefs have really shown. But their defense is good too. And as far as, the Panthers, once again, they're giving up 25 points on average to opponents, and they're only scoring 23. Obviously you're not going to win that way. So I want to see them make these defensive moves, and it'll be interesting to see what they pick for drafts. And with the Chiefs, you look at everybody that's going into the AFC, and I think the better question is what teams do you think can actually – is not whether, the Chiefs are going to be great or going to be there at the end of the season. It's what teams do you think can actually stop them or have a chance to stop them in one game. And when I look at the NFC – I see no team that has the defense that you need to stop a Patrick Mahomes off and Andy Reid offense. I mean, I think Seattle could possibly put up the same numbers offensively, but in a shootout, you're still going to go with Mahomes. And I trust the Chiefs defense to make that one stop that you need. In the AFC, I think it gets a little bit more interesting because you do have some great defenses. Pittsburgh's defense looks great. The Bills have a very strong defense, so maybe the best chance of stopping them is in the AFC, but I don't see anyone really stopping the Chiefs as of right now.
Right, and I want to talk to Scott's point earlier about how Breeze and Brady's days are numbered, which could open things up for the Panthers. It's actually one of the games you wanted to talk about, Matt. Let's get into it.
Yeah, it absolutely is. You know, the clash of the old guard, you know, two Hall of Fame quarterbacks definitely coming into the end of their careers, and a battle for the division at this point, and huge playoff implications. You know, New Orleans goes into Tampa after just embarrassing Tampa in the first game that those two had in New Orleans, and then basically does the same thing. This was a one-sided game. I think Tampa would have probably had a better chance had they just not shown up. You know, maybe something magical happens and they win that way. New Orleans wins 31-3, I believe, and it just walks away with it. I mean, the Saints had pressure on Brady from the get-go. The O-line in Tampa once again looked horrible, and the best thing that Tampa did was they broke a record. They did break an NFL record. They had the least amount of rushes in an entire game. They had five. And one of those is a knee, when they took a knee at the end of the game. So and that was probably the most successful one they had. And when you have, you know, a solid running back group between Leonard, Fournette, and you don't rush them, you don't use that at all, and your line is questionable, and it's given up pressure to Brady. And also, when they start, you know, giving up pressure to Brady, it not just makes Brady play worse, but the O-line plays worse. They start playing very poorly, and they try to, you know, make up for it by, you know, false starts and flags. It reminded me of the Bears game where Tampa didn't, the Tampa didn't lose to the Bears. Tampa beat themselves. And moving forward, I am very interested to see how Arians and Brady continue to try and figure this out, because I will give them this. During the offseason, they had no time to really sit down and talk to each other and work out, like, what do you like? What do I like? How do we make this offense work for both of us? And they're learning on the fly with a questionable offensive line with some rookies on it. And, you know, even though they are stacked as far as their weapons, Godwin's still hurt. Evans, you know, is questionable each game. And actually, Evans didn't do anything until Lattimore went out of the game with the concussion. You know, Lattimore had him blanketed.
Lattimore owns Mike Evans.
And he let him know about it, too.
Oh, yeah. The Lattimore-Evans rivalry is great with those fights that have happened in the past, too. So I'm all here for it. I love when there's the DB versus wide receiver, you know, rivalry. But then you look at, you know, AB and Gronk are clearly not, you know, they've had their moments, but they've been out of the NFL for at least a year, both of them. And it's just, it shows. And this team Tampa Bay completely has the ability to be a great team, but now they're going for a wild card, because you're not going to win unless the Saints completely implode. You're not winning the NFC South. The Saints will have that division. And it gets really interesting moving forward. It comes down to, can Brady and Arians figure this out, do what they both like, and make up for the fact that O-line is not good. And the defense needs to continue to try to be dominant. They allowed Breeze to throw to 12 different receivers. 12 different guys on the Saints had receptions. That is not what you can get from Tampa Bay defense. And that Tampa Bay defense is good. So overall, Tampa Bay has a lot of questions to answer. The Saints, once again, look great and probably are the best team in the NFC as of right now, based on what, you know, Seattle did and what Green Bay is going through. And it's going to be interesting moving forward to see how Tampa Bay kind of gets back into the talks of being one of the contenders.
Yeah, I mean, let me set a quick scene here for you guys, because that was a tough was a tough game to watch on Sunday night. So Jason Pierre-Paul, who's played beautifully for the Buccaneers as a pass rusher here this season, drops a surefire interception on a poorly underthrown ball by Drew Brees on the Saints' first drive of the game. Could have flipped the game right there on the very first drive. He drops it. Next play, Drew Brees hits Traquan Smith in the back of the end zone. The route is on, and that's probably as close as the Bucs would get on Sunday night. And the Saints have dominated this matchup now for the second time this season, and they're truly trending in the right direction, especially now with the return of Michael Thomas, their most important offensive player outside of Drew Brees. And the Saints are rolling. They are a scary team in the NFC. I wouldn't go as far as Matt to say they're the best team in the NFC.
Not even close.
Actually,
Who's better than them?
Actually, I completely reject that idea. I would
Packers.
take the Packers over them.
Yeah. The Seahawks. I like the Seahawks.
Yeah, I like the Seahawks as well, even though that defense is atrocious. But I think they'll figure out. They have Jamal Adams, KJ around the defense. I think they'll figure things out. But I'm not tossing Tampa Bay to the side by any means. I still believe they are a top 5 or so team in the NFC. And although we didn't get to see much of it on Sunday night, Antonio Brown is still in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers uniform. Him and Tom Brady clearly have a rapport, some type of relationship/friendship off the field. And I think that'll find its way onto the field, before we get too far into the season. There are just too many weapons, for Tom Brady to utilize, and that defense is still elite, despite, what we saw on Sunday night. I'm just of the mindset that this is just a terrible matchup for Tampa Bay. And they better hope that they don't, see, or draw New Orleans in the playoffs. What are your thoughts on that, Luke?
Yeah, here's my thing. I do think that the Saints are going to win the NFC South. I think that Brady is really getting exposed this year, as well as Belichick. But it just goes to show that sometimes, the coach can only do so much. I don't think Belichick has the guys in his system to be that great this year with Cam Newton. So to the main point, I think that Brady is really getting exposed in that system with Belichick. He was throwing a lot of check down passes. He never had to he never had to really throw the long ball, and his guys would catch it and they would go. And that's what you see online, just a lot of, short dump offs for Brady and his guys making plays. Unless you go back to the Gronk days, that's when he was really, that's the only guy he would really air it out to, in my opinion. Yeah. And I just feel like, and now Brady has made mental mistakes this year. You remember the notorious game where it was 4th down, and yep, exactly. And that's, maybe something Belichick takes care of for him. We've seen passing mistakes. I just don't think that he, as many weapons as he has, I just think that he's well beyond his years. And I think that Breeze's long ball has gotten a lot worse, but he's just a lot more consistent. He just makes plays. And like Scott was talking about their weapons, Kamara, MT, Emmanuel Sanders is having a heck of a year at 33 or 34 years old. Traquan Smith is looking electric. They even got Marcus Callaway, like Taysom Hill. They just have guys that can fill in any spot and make plays. And then the Buccaneers, another thing you were talking about, Rojo and Fournette, and I like Ronald Jones, but they're like treating Fournette like an outcast, which I don't understand. He was one of the top guys in the league, in my opinion. He was a bulldozer, and he was elusive, and they're just not using him. So I think there's some figuring out to do. They have a lot of new faces around there. So maybe it will all come together, but I just don't think this is it for them.
Final word. Who would you guys pick to represent the NFC?
Even though I said I do believe as of right now, I think the Saints look the best. I think their defense is the strongest out of the 2 other teams that I would deem as the contenders, which is the Seahawks and the Packers.
Yep.
It'll be interesting if Seattle can figure out the defense, if the Packers can get their weapons back and be healthy and also figure out the defense. I think overall I'm still going to go with the Saints, but it's going to be really close. And I could be totally wrong on this because I could, like you said, I could see the Seattle Seahawks or the Packers making that run. I just think overall New Orleans looks like the more complete team on all, aspects of their game. And I also, real quick, I forgot to mention this, Scott. Michael Thomas is important, but Kamara is clearly, number 2 to Breeze. I would say Kamara over Thomas every day. Personally, that's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely argument to be made in terms of the talent, who's better in terms of pure talent. But if we're speaking specifically about the Saints offense, the answer is Michael Thomas in terms of who's most important after Drew Brees. We saw what that offense looked like during his absence between the suspension and injury. Brees looked lost out there for about 3 to 4 weeks. During the beginning part of the season during that stretch, he really looked lost without his number 1 guy. Kamara, he's kind of had to step up. He's always going to be there. He's always going to be that runner and pass catcher for you. But, Michael Thomas is really Drew Brees' security blanket. He's led the league in receptions. They call him Mr. Slant because that's all he runs, but all he does is get open. And I think the Saints picking it up and now winning, 3 or 4 games in a row now, the timing of that goes perfect with the return of Michael Thomas, because I feel like really with them knocking Tampa Bay off 2 times in a row now, they can really skyrocket into, a deep playoff run that I don't rather believe ends in the NFC Championship. Back to my question, I think Green Bay figures it out. I think they figure out that run defense. I think Aaron Rodgers with a combination of Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams is going to be more than enough for any defense to handle. And if the Packers can just simply stop the run, I really like them to, to make their first, Super Bowl appearance since they won it.
That's a lot to ask as of right now.
It is. But every team has their deficiencies.
And I hate to say it, but I think, honestly, it's going to be the Packers. But I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm kind of in between on them now, because after some very questionable games, I mean, they got manhandled by the Buccaneers. And then they let Dalvin Cook just absolutely demolish them. And that was, I mean, you can't lose to the Vikings. I mean, they came back, though, and a beat-up 49ers team, but they handled them well on Thursday night. I don't know. I think in the long run, the Packers are probably the most complete. Not a very promising sign the last couple of weeks, but I think long run, they're going to be the most complete. And I love the coaching over there. So I got the Packers in the NFC.
I will say I do like Matt LaFleur as a coach. He's been great with the Packers.
Absolutely.
And he can manage, him and Rodgers' personalities, kind of connect with McCarthy. That was just something that didn't ever happen. I just think being young, honestly, almost around the same age.
No, they're only like 3 years apart, I think.
Yeah, being there, they're just kind of both a couple of bros that honestly they just get along. That's the best way to describe it, honestly.
No, I like it, and I've been watching the Packers a lot, and I definitely could see them. They were my team up until those 2 terrible losses. They really were. Like I was saying that they were better than Seattle, who was, at that point they were the clear favorites with everybody else. I thought the Packers were the best. It's more of, what have you done for me lately? And you look at just kind of the momentum that New Orleans has right now, and you start to wonder, are they going to be able to carry it? And it's going to be tight. It's going to be tight, and we'll probably flip on this, maybe 2 more times at least during the rest of the season. NFC is very interesting. AFC is a little bit more clear-cut.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
I think that's going to do it for us here. Thanks so much for tuning in to BVM Sports Chalk Talk. On behalf of Matt Morris, Lucas Semb, and Scott Procter here, we'll catch you guys next time.